Ẹ káàárọ̀, ẹ káàsán, ẹ káalẹ́ àti bísẹ̀ tí mo wá. This is CrossblogxTV. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share. Lórí awuyewuye tó ń lọ láàrin Ooni of Ife, èmi ni ọmọ Oduduwa, ìwọ ò kì í ṣọmọ Oduduwa, ìwọ ló láṣẹ láti pàṣẹ, èmi ò láṣẹ láti pàṣẹ. Àwọn àṣírí ńlá míì ti wá tú báyìí o. Wọ́n ní Oduduwa tó jẹ́ bàbá wa Yorùbá gangan. Wọ́n ní kò ń ṣe Saudi ló ti wá o. Wọ́n ní àwọn Saudi náà kọ ìtàn yìí fún wa o. Wọ́n ní àwa ní ìtàn ti wa lọ́tọ̀ o. Ṣé gbogbo nǹkan tá wá gbọ́ nígbà tá wà ní school ṣó ti wá yàtọ̀ báyìí ni? Wọ́n ní Almaroof ni bàbá Oduduwa. Mẹ́kà ló ti wá. Arábìnrin ti tú ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àṣírí nípa ìtàn ilẹ̀ Yorùbá. Wọ́n ní gbogbo nǹkan tá bá ń gbọ́ lórí ayélujára, wọ́n ní kò ń ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ ló ṣe rí o. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́, ṣé bó ṣe rí lọ́dọ̀ tẹ̀yin nìyẹn? Ẹ drop opinion yín sínú comment. Ẹ jẹ́ ká gbọ́ ẹ̀kúnrẹ́rẹ́ àlàyé yìí lára ìtàn ilẹ̀ Yorùbá àti Oduduwa àti Almaroof.
I made yesterday about some of the claims of where Oduduwa came from. I mentioned 4 claims. One said he came from Mecca, and I said this was popularized by early Islamic scholars in Yorubaland. In doing their proselytizing, they claimed that they heard the history of Yoruba people about Oduduwa being their progenitor, and they theorized that he came from Mecca and gave a story. There's a place I'm going. Just be patient. The second one is about Muhammad Bello. He was not the one who popularized the Meccan descent. He popularized the Canaan descent, where he said Yoruba people. He didn't even say Oduduwa. He said Yoruba people came from Canaan. Then Samuel Johnson reported the Almaroof story and the Meccan descent of Oduduwa and did all the narrative. But I am not sure if you read that book of Samuel Johnson, you realize that he actually did not hold on to that. He preferred the Egyptian descent of Yoruba people and maybe Oduduwa. And some others believe that it was Sudan. And the last one was the Kaladeran fast. But in this video, I want to attend to the Almaroof story that Oduduwa was a son of Almaroof, as reported by Samuel Johnson. And I'm going to tell you some of the researches that have been done to actually debunk this. Now, in the narrative about Almaroof being the father of Oduduwa, and that Oduduwa, he was in Kisra, and then there was a war because they were idol worshippers. I think his grandfather was an idol worshipper. His father did not want to worship idols. He believed in Allah, but Oduduwa wanted to worship idol. And so Oduduwa now fought with the people of Kisra. That's where they claimed. And when he fought with them, eventually he was expelled with his followers. And they now moved out of this place and moved down to Africa. That's the narrative, the way it went. And it was claimed that Almaroof was his father. Now, many Yoruba historiographers actually went into the archives of Arabian history, whether there was a story that tallies with this narrative, of something happening between Almaroof with his son, who was Oduduwa, and it led to, the other being expelled with his followers because he was an idol worshipper. And there was nothing like that in the history of the Arabs, whether the Islamic history or the history of Arabia itself. There was nothing like that. Islamic scholars who are not Nigerians, now listen, who are not Nigerians, have been asked about this history, and they have debunked that there was nothing like that in Arab history or in Islamic history of a Almaroof who gave birth to an Odua or Odum, whatever people have called, or Adum or Aduduwa. Like many have written about this. That there was nothing like that, that there was no migration like that came from that part of the Middle East into this part of Africa in order to found a kingdom or whatever. But there was nothing like that. So it's just like the name Yoruba that people have been saying originated from Fufude or originated from the Hausas. There is no word like that, both in Hausa and in Fufude. So this is the way we do it. Once there is a narrative in a particular place, then we check out the history where they said the thing originated from. If you cannot find a corroborating evidence there, know that it is not true. Because how we know that it is not true is that Arabia came into writing before West Africa. So if, in fact, do you know that many of the history we have about East Africa and North Africa were actually written by the Arabs? They were actually written by the Arabs. So they came into writing earlier than us. So if truly there was that kind of happening and that kind of migration, they would have noted it. But there was nothing like that. So there was nothing like Lamurudu. Lamurudu was a fictitious character that was introduced by the early Islamic scholars, and that Samuel Johnson took hook, line, and sinker and reported it in his book on Yoruba history. And then this is what the Oyo people always like to narrate and say that Lamurudu was the father of Oduduwa and Okambi was the only son of Oduduwa. It will just surprise you to know that the actual name of the father of Oduduwa was actually Jeye. In some other Oduifa rendition, they will tell you Abure. Oduduwa Oma Abure. Some will tell you when some Babalawos are talking, they will call his name Jeye. So you can see that. And then in Ife history, they will tell you that Oduduwa himself was a descendant of Alaafin. So you can see. So in Ife oral tradition, there is nobody like Lamurudu in Ife oral tradition, whether from the old Ifa corpus or from the oral traditions of the griots in the Ife palace. I have been to Ife palace. I have listened to several whatever. I've listened to several Babalawos, listened to several other people, and none of them has said that Lamurudu was the father of Oduduwa. Have a nice.
Ogun tó lóhùn ní gbọ́ tó lóhùn ní gbà lórí ayé yín, iná agbára Ọlọ́run máa jó dànù. Kí lè nǹkan tẹ́ ń là kọjá tó dàbí pé ẹ ti wá ọ̀nà àbáyọ ṣùgbọ́n tí ẹ ti rí ọ̀nà àbáyọ. Ẹ ti pàdé wòlíì yín ló fà, ṣùgbọ́n arán mi sí ọ lónìí dádì, arán mi sí ọ lónìí mọ́mì. Olúwa lòun fẹ́ ṣe nǹkan ńlá nínú ayé yín. Olúwa sọ wípé gbogbo tẹ́ ń là kọjá yín òun fẹ́ fi òpin sí. Kí nìkan tẹ́ ń là kọjá lórí ìgbéyàwó ni, lórí ọmọ ni, lórí iṣẹ́ ni, níbi gbogbo ni, bóyá ogun kan ló dàbí pé ogun yẹn le, ẹ ti gbìyànjú kò tí ì sí ọ̀nà àbáyọ. Ẹ jẹ́ àjọ gbàdúrà, ẹ jẹ́ àjọ wá ojú Olúwa, kí làṣírí ogun yẹn gangan, ẹ jẹ́ àjọ wádìí lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run, ká dẹ̀ mọ ọ̀nà àbáyọ. Ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ tẹ́ fi pè mí fún àdúrà àti ọ̀nà àbáyọ, òun náà ni +234 7025 47 5427 +234 7025